The letter arrived on a Tuesday, crumpled and smeared with rain, as if the universe itself had tried to soften the blow. Ezra Coleman, 25, stood frozen in his tiny Seattle apartment, the paper trembling in his hands. His parents' words sliced through him. "We can't support your choices. The car is gone. Don't come home." Ezra's knees buckled. The car, a sleek, cherry-red Mustang, his 21st birthday gift from his late grandfather, Pops, had been his lifeline, his escape from a world that often felt too sharp. He'd come out to his parents a year ago, hoping for acceptance, but their response was to seize the one thing that tethered him to Pop's unconditional love. He sank onto the threadbare couch, his hazel eyes stinging with tears he refused to let fall. Seattle's gray skyline loomed outside his window, a mirror to the storm inside him. Across town, in a cozy coffee shop buzzing with the hum of espresso machines, Leo Martinez, 26, sketched absent-mindedly on a napkin. His dark eyes flickered with warmth, but his jaw was tight, betraying the weight of his own battles. Leo had grown up in a tight-knit Mexican-American family in Tacoma, where love was abundant but understanding was scarce. He'd moved to Seattle to chase his dream of becoming an artist, but also to escape the whispers of Khan that followed him at family gatherings. His phone buzzed, a text from Ezra. "They took the car. I'm done." Leo's heart sank. He'd met Ezra 6 months ago at a queer poetry slam in Capitol Hill, where Ezra's raw, trembling voice had captivated him. They'd bonded over late-night talks about their dreams. Ezra's of opening a community center for queer youth, Leo's of painting murals that told stories no one else dared to tell. Their connection was instant, a spark that felt like fate. Now, Leo shoved his sketchbook into his bag and rushed out into the drizzle, determined to reach Ezra before the pain swallowed him whole. Ezra's apartment smelled of instant coffee and old books. When Leo arrived, he found Ezra staring at the letter, his curly brown hair disheveled, his face pale. "They didn't just take the car," Ezra whispered, voice cracking. "They took him. Pops gave me that Mustang because he believed in me. He was the only one who ever did." Leo knelt beside him, his calloused hand finding Ezra's. "They can't take Pops from you," he said softly. "And they can't take us." Ezra's eyes met Leo's, and for a moment, the world felt less heavy. But the hurt lingered, a bruise that wouldn't fade. The next morning, Ezra's phone rang, an unfamiliar number from a law firm in Portland. The voice on the other end was crisp, professional. "Mr. Coleman, I'm calling about your grandfather's estate. There's a will reading scheduled for next week. Your presence is required." Ezra's breath caught. Pops had passed 2 years ago, and the family had claimed everything was settled. Why now? Leo drove them to Portland in his beat-up Honda, the road trip filled with quiet moments and shared playlists. They stopped at a roadside diner, where Ezra laughed for the first time in days over Leo's terrible impression of a country singer. But as they neared the law firm, Ezra's nerves returned. "What if this is just another way for them to hurt me?" he murmured. The law office was sterile, all glass and sharp angles. Ezra's parents, Margaret and Paul, sat across the table, their faces pinched with disapproval. His older sister, Claire, was there too, her eyes avoiding his. The lawyer, a gray-haired woman with a no-nonsense air, opened a sealed envelope. "Mr. Ezra Coleman," she began, "your grandfather, Henry Coleman, left you the entirety of his estate, his property in Bainbridge Island, his savings and all assets, valued at approximately $2.5 million. The room went silent. Margaret's face twisted with fury. "That's impossible," she snapped. "He promised us the house." Paul's fists clenched, his voice low. This is because of your lifestyle, isn't it? He's rewarding your sin. Ezra's heart pounded. Pops had known he was gay. Ezra had told him during a quiet summer on the island, and Pops had hugged him tightly, saying, "You're my boy always." But to leave him everything felt like a miracle and a curse. Claire's eyes softened for a moment, but she said nothing. The lawyer continued, unfazed. "There's a condition. You must live on the Bainbridge property for at least 1 year to claim the inheritance. Failure to do so will result in the estate being divided among the remaining heirs." Margaret's smile was cold. "He won't last a month," she said. "He's weak." Leo squeezed Ezra's hand under the table, his voice steady when he spoke. "He's stronger than you'll ever know." Ezra felt a surge of warmth, but the weight of his parents' rejection pressed harder. Could he face a year on that island, surrounded by memories of Pops, but also the ghosts of his family's disdain? Back in Seattle, Ezra and Leo sat by the lake in Volunteer Park, the city's hum a distant comfort. "I don't know if I can do this," Ezra admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "That house, it's where I felt safest, but it's also where they'll fight me hardest." Leo's eyes were fierce with belief. "You don't have to do it alone. I'm with you, Ezra. We'll make it ours." The decision was made. They'd move to Bainbridge, face the family, and claim what Pops had left for Ezra. But as they packed their lives into boxes, a letter slipped from Ezra's journal. A note from Pops, written before his death. "Ezra, live bravely. The world will try to break you, but you're stronger than it knows." The ferry to Bainbridge Island cut through the Puget Sound, its wake trailing like a promise of new beginnings. Ezra leaned against the railing, the wind tugging at his jacket, while Leo stood beside him, sketching the horizon in a pocket notebook. The island loomed ahead, lush and green, but to Ezra, it felt like stepping into a battlefield. The Coleman estate was a sprawling craftsman-style house nestled among towering cedars, with a wraparound porch and windows that caught the light like stained glass. Ezra's chest tightened as he unlocked the door, memories of Pops flooding back. Late-night chess games, stories of his Navy days, the way he'd hum Sinatra while cooking. But the house wasn't empty. Claire was there, sorting through boxes in the living room, her expression unreadable. "You're really doing this?" she asked, her voice clipped. Ezra nodded, his throat tight. "It's what Pops wanted." Claire's lips pressed into a thin line. "Mom and Dad are furious. They're talking about contesting the will." Ezra's stomach churned, but Leo stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Let them try. This is Ezra's now." The first week was a blur of unpacking and navigating the house's quirks. Creaky floors, a finicky water heater, and a garden Pops had loved but now lay overgrown. Ezra found solace in tending it, pulling weeds while Leo painted the porch, his brushstrokes vibrant against the weathered wood. At night, they cooked simple meals, laughing over burnt pasta and dreaming of what the house could become. A haven, maybe even a space for queer youth to find safety. But the peace didn't last. Margaret and Paul arrived unannounced, their SUV screeching into the driveway. "You're not keeping this house?" Margaret spat, storming inside. "You're a disgrace to this family." Paul's eyes landed on Leo, his sneer cutting. "And you're dragging this one down with you." Ezra's hands shook, but he stood tall. "This is my home now. Pops gave it to me." The confrontation escalated, Margaret's voice rising as she accused Ezra of manipulating Pops. Leo's presence was a quiet anchor, his hand brushing Ezra's back, a reminder he wasn't alone. Finally, Paul issued an ultimatum. "Leave by the end of the month, or we'll make sure you lose everything." They left, but the threat hung heavy. a storm cloud over the house. Ezra couldn't sleep that night. He wandered to the attic, where he found a trunk filled with Pop's old journals. One entry, dated a year before his death, stopped him cold. Ezra's got a fire in him, but his parents are blind to it. I'm leaving him the estate, not just the house, but the chance to prove them wrong. I hope he finds someone who sees him the way I do. Tears spilled down Ezra's cheeks. Pops had known, even then, what this would mean. Leo found him there, sitting among the journals, and pulled him into a hug. Pops saw you, Leo whispered, and I see you too. Their lips met, soft and urgent, a promise sealed in the attic's dusty glow. For the first time, Ezra felt like he could fight for this. Not just the house, but the life he wanted with Leo. The next day, they got to work. Leo started sketching plans for a community space in the barn, while Ezra researched legal protections for the inheritance. But whispers from the island's tight-knit community began to spread. Neighbors, influenced by Margaret's gossip, eyed them with suspicion. A local lawyer, sympathetic to their cause, warned them, "Your parents are building a case. They're claiming undue influence. You need to be ready." Ezra's resolve hardened. He and Leo began hosting small gatherings in the house. Queer artists, activists, and youth from Seattle who needed a safe space. The barn slowly transformed, its walls adorned with Leo's murals, vibrant stories of resilience and love. But every step forward felt like a step toward war with his family. One evening, as they sat on the porch, Ezra's phone buzzed with a message from Claire. "I'm sorry. I didn't know how bad it was. Can we talk?" Hope flickered, but so did fear. Was this a trap, or a chance to mend something broken? Claire's visit came on a foggy morning, the island shrouded in mist. Ezra met her at the ferry terminal, his heart a tangle of hope and caution. She looked different, tired, her blonde hair pulled back messily, her eyes carrying a weight he hadn't seen before. "I didn't know they'd go this far," she said, her voice low. "I thought they'd get over it." They walked to a small cafe, where Claire confessed she'd been caught between loyalty to their parents and guilt over abandoning Ezra. "Pops talked about you all the time," she said. "He said you were the future of this family. I didn't understand then, but I'm starting to." Ezra's throat tightened. For years, he'd felt like the outcast, but Pops had seen something in him worth fighting for. Claire revealed that Margaret and Paul were working with a lawyer to contest the will, claiming Pops wasn't of sound mind when he changed it to favor Ezra. "They're digging for anything, old medical records, neighbors' testimonies," she said. "But I found something that might help." She slid a USB drive across the table. "It's a video of Pops, recorded a month before he died. He talks about you and the estate." Back at the house, Ezra and Leo watched the video on an old laptop. Pop's face filled the screen, his eyes bright despite his frail frame. "I'm leaving everything to Ezra," he said, his voice steady. "Not because he's my grandson, but because he's got the heart to make something good out of it. He's gay, and I'm proud of him. If anyone tries to take this from him, they're going against my wishes." The video ended, and Ezra felt a rush of gratitude and grief. Pops had given him not just a house, but a shield. The legal battle loomed closer. Ezra and Leo met with their lawyer, Sarah, who reviewed the video and nodded. "This is strong evidence, but it's not a guarantee. Your parents have deep pockets and deeper grudges." She advised them to keep building community support to show the island and the court what Ezra planned to do with the estate. The barn gatherings grew, drawing queer youth from across the region. One night, a shy teenager named Riley shared their story of being kicked out by their family. Ezra listened, his own pain mirrored in Riley's words, and promised to make the estate a safe haven. Leo's murals began to take shape, a vibrant tapestry of faces, stories, and pride that transformed the barn into a beacon of hope. But the pressure mounted. Anonymous letters arrived, filled with slurs and threats. One night, a brick shattered a window, a note tied to it, "Get out or else." Leo's hands shook as he swept up the glass, but his voice was fierce. "They're scared because we're winning." Ezra nodded, but fear gnawed at him. What if they lost everything? Not just the house, but each other. Claire began visiting more often, helping with the barn and bringing documents she'd found in their parents' files. Evidence of their attempts to manipulate Pops Will years earlier. Her presence was a fragile bridge, but it gave Ezra hope. One evening, as they painted the barn's interior, Claire asked, "Do you ever think about forgiving them?" Ezra paused, his brush dripping. "I don't know if I can, but I want to live for something bigger than their hate." That night, Ezra and Leo lay in bed, the house creaking around them. "We're building something real here," Leo whispered, his fingers tracing Ezra's jaw. "No matter what happens, they can't take that away." Ezra kissed him, the warmth of Leo's belief anchoring him. They were fighting for more than an inheritance now, they were fighting for a future. The court date was set for a crisp October morning, the air sharp with the promise of autumn. Ezra and Leo arrived at the Seattle courthouse, their hands clasped tightly, Pop's video and Claire's documents in a folder under Ezra's arm. The courtroom was cold, its wooden benches filled with curious locals and a few familiar faces from the barn gatherings. Margaret and Paul sat across the aisle, their lawyer whispering in their ear, their expressions unyielding. Sarah presented their case with precision, playing Pop's video for the judge. The room fell silent as Pop's voice echoed, his love for Ezra undeniable. Margaret's face reddened, but she said nothing. Their lawyer countered, painting Ezra as a rebellious son who'd coerced an ailing man. Ezra's stomach twisted, but Leo's steady presence kept him grounded. Claire took the stand, her voice trembling but clear. "I saw how much Pops loved Ezra," she said. "He changed the will because he believed in him, not because he was manipulated." The judge's face was unreadable, but Ezra felt a spark of hope. The barn community had submitted letters of support, describing the safe space Ezra and Leo were creating. Riley, the teenager, had written a heartfelt note. "Ezra gave me a home when my family didn't. He's saving lives." The hearing stretched into days, each one a battle of words and wills. Margaret and Paul's lawyer brought witnesses, neighbors who claimed Pops was confused in his final months. But Sarah dismantled their claims, presenting medical records that showed Pops was lucid when he revised his will. Ezra took the stand, his voice steady despite his nerves. "I'm not here to take anything from anyone," he said. "I just want to honor Pop's wishes and build something good." Outside the courthouse, tensions spilled over. Margaret cornered Ezra during a recess, her voice low and venomous. "You're tearing this family apart," she hissed. Leo stepped between them, his eyes blazing. "No, you did that when you chose hate over your son." Margaret flinched, and for a moment, Ezra saw something like regret in her eyes. But she turned away, and the moment was gone. Back at the house, Ezra and Leo threw themselves into the barn project, needing to believe in something bigger than the courtroom. The community rallied, helping to paint, repair, and dream. One night, Riley and a few others stayed late, sharing stories around a fire pit. "I never thought I'd have a place like this," Riley said, their voice soft. Ezra's heart swelled. This was why he was fighting, not just for Pops, but for every kid like Riley who needed a home. The final day of the hearing arrived. The judge called for closing statements, and Sarah's words were fierce. This isn't about money or property. It's about a man's right to choose his legacy and a grandson's right to live authentically. Margaret and Paul's lawyer argued that Ezra's lifestyle disqualified him, but the judge's expression hardened at the word. That night, Ezra and Leo sat on the porch, the stars bright above the island. "Whatever happens tomorrow," Ezra said, "we've already won. We've got each other and we've got this." Leo smiled, pulling him close. "And we've got Pops watching over us." The judge's gavel fell, and the courtroom held its breath. "After reviewing the evidence, including Henry Coleman's video testimony, I find no grounds to contest the will," she declared. "The estate belongs to Ezra Coleman, provided he fulfills the residency requirement." Ezra's eyes burned with tears, relief crashing over him like a wave. Leo's hand found his, squeezing tightly, a silent "we did it." Margaret and Paul stood abruptly, their faces pale with defeat. Claire lingered, her eyes meeting Ezra's with a quiet apology. She approached him outside the courtroom, her voice soft. "I'm proud of you," she said. "I'll try to fix things with them, but you've got this." Ezra nodded, unsure if reconciliation was possible, but grateful for her words. The ferry ride back to Bainbridge felt like a victory lap. Ezra leaned against Leo, the weight of the past year lifting. The house welcomed them home, its creaks and quirks now familiar, a canvas for their dreams. They wasted no time. Within weeks, the barn was officially opened as Pop's Place, a community center for queer youth. Murals adorned the walls, each one a testament to Leo's talent and their shared vision. Riley became a regular, helping to organize events, their shy smile a reminder of why this mattered. Margaret and Paul never returned to the island, their silence a wound that Ezra learned to carry lightly. Claire visited occasionally, bringing small steps toward healing, a shared coffee, a hesitant hug. The Mustang, recovered from a storage lot after a legal skirmish, sat in the driveway, its red paint gleaming like a promise kept. One spring evening, Ezra and Leo stood in the garden, now blooming with Pop's favorite roses. The community had gathered for a celebration. Music, laughter, and stories filling the air. Ezra looked at Leo, his heart full. "This is what Pops wanted," he said. "A place where love wins." Leo grinned, pulling Ezra close. "And it's what we're building together." Their kiss was soft, grounding, a moment of quiet triumph in a world that had tried to tear them apart. Above them, the stars shone, and Ezra swore he felt Pop's presence, humming Sinatra in the breeze. As the night wound down, Ezra found Pop's journal in the attic, its pages worn but warm. He added his own entry. "Pops, we did it. The house is alive again, and so am I. Thank you for seeing me." He closed the book, his heart steady, knowing that love, his Leo's Pops, had carved a home where none should have been possible.